Good morning, students. In the previous class, we had a discussion on various conditional statements like simple if else statement, nested if else if ladder, and lastly, we discussed about this switch statement, which is a multi-way decision making statement. Now, in today's classroom discussion topic, we are going to start about the discussion regarding this iterative statements, so which we can also call it as the loop statements. Now I would like to share my screen. So is my screen is visible to you? Hope I think it is visible. Now the classroom discussion topic is the looping statements, and in this particular session we are going to discuss about the while loop and as well as this do while loop. The lecture objectives are: this session will develop the students' knowledge on various looping statements such as while loop and do while loop statements. So if you are coming to this iteration, iteration and repetitive execution. So generally a loop always allows us to, a loop always allows us to execute a statement or a block of statements repetitively. So there are mainly two types of looping statements. So which are called it as a unbounded iteration or unbounded loop statement, and another one is called it as a bounded loop statement. So this is another important way of categorization of the looping statements is that pre-test loop and post-test loop. These are the two important categories of the loop statements. So that is also called it as pre-test loop is also called it as entry controlled loop, we can say it as, and post test loop is called it as exit controlled loop, we can call it as. So now here the entry controlled loop is nothing but we are first testing the condition. If the condition is true, then we are performing the execution of the statements which we have written within the body of the loop, and then again we are coming to this test condition and we are checking this test condition. If this test condition is true, then we are executing this set of statements, we are executing that. So this is what the looping or iteration or repetition we have carrying out as long as this test expression is true. When the test expression becomes false, then we are coming to the next statement after the loop. So this is called it as a pre-test condition loop because we are testing the condition prior to the execution of the body of the loop. And coming to this post-test condition loop here, first we are executing the body of the loop, later we are testing the condition, here text expression. If it is true, we are continuing the again second iteration of the execution of the loop body. If the condition is false, we are coming out of this looping statement. So this is what we are calling it as exit controlled loop, we are calling it as. Why? Because after execution of this body of the loop, we are testing the condition. So the condition test will be after the body of loop execution. That is the call, that is the reason it is called it as a post test. So these are the two important categories of the loop statements or repetitive statements are there. So if you are coming to this a while loop construct, so C language is providing three important types of loops. One is called it as a while loop and another one is called it as a for loop. These two are called it as entry controlled loops, we can call it as, or pre-test loops, we can call it as. And the third important type of loop that the C language is supporting for us is do while loop. so which is called it as a exit control loop, or we can call it as a post test loop, we can call it as. So now in this particular video session, we are going to discuss about one entry control loop and one exit control loop, that is a while loop and do while loop we are going to discuss. So this while loop statement is a pretest loop. Just now we discussed that. The basic syntax of the while loop is given like this: while followed by some text expression. So there is no semicolon. This is very important. Generally we end every statement with semicolon, but you should not use semicolon here. If you use semicolon here, so this becomes it as a while loop without any body. Okay. So this is the body of this loop which we have enclosed in the curly braces. So these are the set of statements we have written here, and this curly braces is also not ended with the semicolon. Be careful about while you are using the semicolon. So this is what we are calling it as here, the syntax of this while loop. Now if you see here, we have a initialization statement, and then here the test expression will be there, and if the test expression is true, then the body of the loop will be executed. The body of the loop is nothing but the statements which we have enclosed within these curly braces, and then there is a one important statement in the block or a body that is called it as updating statement. The loop condition variable updation should be done. So this is what the while loop is basically. So its flowchart for execution will be like this: initialization, and then we are testing the condition. If condition is true, then we are executing the statements, and then we are updating the loop variable, and after that we are coming to this what we are calling it as a test expression, test condition. Again we are checking the test condition. If it is true, then we are repeating this execution of the statements and so on, and then updating statement, and if after updating this statement we are again coming to the test expression. So as long as the text expression is true, this body of the loop will be repetitively executed. When the text expression becomes false, we will exit from this particular loop, and we are coming to the next statement after this loop body. Fine. So this is what the syntax and flow chart for the while loop basically. Now if you see an example which is using this uh, while loop, here this particular this is c equal to 5, which we are calling it as initialization, and this is a condition we are writing here. So while c greater than 0, so 5 is greater than 0, condition is true. So since condition is true, control will enter into the loop. Fine. So within this loop body, whatever we have written here, curly braces, that constitutes the body of the while loop. So it will execute this printf percentage dc. So c value is 5. So 5 will be printed, and then c equals c minus 1. This is what we are calling it as a loop variable updation basically. So this particular statement must and should be there. So then the value becomes it as a 4, and then control again comes to the test condition 4 greater than 0, condition is true. Then again it will print this, and then c equals c minus 1, that means now 4 minus 1 it becomes 3. Again it will come to this condition 3 is greater than 0, condition is true again, so it will print 3. Okay, so and then c becomes 2, again it will comes to this condition 2 greater than 0, yes, condition is true, then it will print 2, and then c equal to c minus 1, so c becomes 1, 1 greater than, okay, so 1 greater than 0, condition is true, then it will print 1 also, it will print that. Then c equal to c minus 1, 1 minus 1, which is equal to 0. Again condition is tested here, 0 is greater than 0, so condition is false. We will exit from this loop. So once you exit from this loop, control will come to the next statement after the closing curly brace of this while loop body, that is nothing but return 0. So this loop contains a part of while loop. When executed in this program, this loop is going to print the values 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fine. So this is what the one simple example using this while loop. So when we are using this while loop here, so it is very important while you are testing floating point equality. So floating point equality, when you are testing, it should be very cautious about that. So here we are declaring a float x. Now x is equal to 0 0.0 we have given here, and while x not equal to 0 0.0 is not equal to 0 0.0 is not equal to 1.1, then x is equal to x plus, that is 0 0.0 plus 0 0.1. So printf 1.1 minus equals to 0.2, this is 1.1 minus x. So the above loop never terminates on many computers because 0.1 cannot be accurately represented using binary numbers. So never test floating point numbers for exact equality, especially in the loops. So don't use like this. The equality testing for the floating point values will never be tested properly. So the correct way to make the test is to see if the two numbers are approximately equal or not. It is not exactly equal. Fine. So this is what we are calling it as. And then next, coming to this second type of loop, which we have categorized this do while loop under exactly exit control loop. Fine. Or we can call it as post test loop, we can call it as. So the do while loop syntax will be like this: do, then begin, some set of statements will be there, and then closing brace, and after that while test expression. Now here semicolon. Be careful about here. So in the do while loop, we will end this while with the text expression followed by semicolon. So what it does here, first initialization will be done, then statements will be executed. After that, updating will be done, then test expression will be done. After that, if test expression is true, then the repetition will be done here. If it is false, we'll exit from this loop. So this is the syntax of this do while loop followed by this flow chart. So very important point with this, when we are using the do while statement, the body of the loop is executed first and the text expression is checked after the loop body is executed. Thus, the do while statement always executes the loop body at least once, even if the condition is false. So it will execute that body of the loop. After that only it will know that the condition is false. That's the reason the body of this do while loop is executed at least once. So if you see an example here, int x is equal to 1 and int count equal to 0, do scanf percentage d ampersand x. So we are reading this x value from the keyboard and we are checking if x is greater than 0, we are counting that count equal to count plus 1. So and then here while x is greater than or equal to 0, we are writing the condition, because what, when the user gives a negative value, then only this condition becomes false. Otherwise, it is going on reading that values as long as the user inputs that positive integers. So it will count how many positive integers we have entered. Fine. So there are no hard and fast rule regarding which type of loop should be used, because C language, just now we discussed about that C language is providing three different types of loops: while loop, for loop, and do while loop. So whatever the program we wrote using one particular type of loop, we can use another loop also to make use of the same program to be written with that another loop. So there are hard and fast rules. There are no hard and fast rules regarding which type of loop should be used to solve a particular problem. Any problem can be solved with any type of loop. We can use that. So whatever the loop which is comfortable for you, you can make use of it, and you can write the code for solving that particular problem. So some methods for controlling repetition in a program is by making use of sentinel values, or using prime read, or using counter. We can control the repetition within the loops basically. Now this is a reflection spot one. So identify the output of the following code. Here we have given this code on based on this while loop. So it is very easy for you. So it is checking 1 is less than or equal to 4. If it is true, then it will print 1, and then number becomes, this num is having 1. So number becomes incremented by 1. It becomes 2, 2 less than or equal to 4, and so on. It is going to print 1, 2, 3, 4. When number becomes 5, so 5 less than or equal to 4, condition fails, we will exit from this loop. So that means the following code is going to print the output as 1, 2, 3, 4. Fine. So LOs are revisited here. This session will develop the students' knowledge on looping statements such as while and do while loop. So summary of this session is that a loop executes the sequence of statements many times until the stated condition becomes false. So a loop is always consisting of two parts. One is a body of the loop and another one is a control statement, which is nothing but the loop condition, we can call it as. The control statement is a combination of some conditions that direct the body of the loop to execute until the specified condition becomes false. So the purpose of the loop is to repeat the same code a number of times. If you want to execute that, we are making use of this loop. So there are two important loops that we discussed in this particular session. One is while loop and another one is do while loop. So this is a lecture outcome. After completion of the session, students will able to develop the code using a C language by making use of these different types of looping statements. So this is a lecture level practice problem. So we are asking to solve this problem by making use of any of this loop structure. So the first problem is to find the factorial of a given number using a while loop we asked here. And another second problem is that develop the C code to print all Armstrong numbers between 1 and 500. So this is one important example. Okay, so where we are making use of that Armstrong number is nothing but sum of the cubes of individual digits within a given number is equal to the number itself, then it is called it as a Armstrong number. Okay, so thank you one and all for your patient listening.